Now we're going to pass it over to our awesome panelists, Nikhil, Nilay, Aman, and Sana. Introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
Hey everybody, I'll just start it off. So my name is Nikhil Patel. I'm one of the co-directors for GTR this upcoming year. I started off on my GTR Raas competition journey my sophomore year, where I was PR, public relations, and then my junior year, I took the tech chair position. So I'm excited to become director this year and share any knowledge that I have gained throughout the last couple of years with you guys. So hopefully we can help you guys out if you guys have any questions as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go next. I'm Aman Patel. I am one of Nikhil's co-directors for GTR, and I started my GTR journey as a sophomore rep, and then I was external finance, and now I am director.
I can actually go next. I'm also one of the co-directors with Nikhil and Aman. My name is Nilay. I also started my journey sophomore year as the external chair, then moving on to logistics, and now I am director.
Hey, hi, I'm Sana. I was one of the co-directors / co-founders for Raas and the 614 with Man and Kashvi, who are also here. And that's all I have.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So we just want to talk about the competition in general, especially this year. It's going to be a little different than years past because of the fact that we're coming off of a COVID year. So a COVID-19 transition is going to be something new to a lot of us. Not even just new emerging comps, but even old ones that have just been operating within certain guidelines for so long. So it's important to remember that safety comes first, especially when you're hosting a competition where there could be upwards of 200, 300, 400 people involved. And it can, especially at a time like this where we just came off of a COVID year where the disease and virus can still be rampant and still be spreading, it's important to keep in mind any guidelines that might be set in your specific area. So for us, that would be St. Louis County, as well as the state of Missouri, and then nationally as well. And then also keep in mind guidelines set by RAS. RAS is continuously monitoring what is happening and will decide whether or not it is safe to keep going, because we don't want people just gathering in this mass group and just everyone getting COVID. That would be terrible. So it's important to keep in mind that even though we are trying to return to a sense of normalcy going to this competition season, there are going to be certain things like maybe associated with mixer or things that we do before or after the comp that may have to include masks and whatnot. So it's important to keep in mind the safety of all the dancers that attend our competitions. Second thing is spreading our experience out. And I think this is probably one of the biggest things coming off of this COVID year, especially GTR. We have a very young board now because there was a lack of experience going on last year due to the fact that we didn't actually get to host the competition. Even though the board was picked out, a lot of people came in and left just as fast without really ever having to do anything. So because of that, we have a very clear split between who has experience on board and who doesn't. So when you're creating the board or you're delegating tasks, it's very important to keep in mind who you pair together, especially if they have similar skill sets. It's important that you get those people who have the experience applying their skills specifically to a competition to also work with the younger members of the team so that they can teach them. And that way, as the years progress and people begin to leave again, there are people to fill those shoes and be competent in their positions moving forward. Because you don't want to be putting everybody, for example, in a position of PR where you have 3 freshmen or sophomores who have never been on board, and then one person. And then for a different position, for like finance per se, you have 2 seniors. Then when those seniors leave, there's going to be a gap in finance. And that year they're going to struggle with PR because there's no real emphasis on how it needs to be done a certain way. And then finally, for this COVID-19 transition, we do highly recommend a strong emphasis on fundraising. The reason for that is a lot of competitions, whether you're affiliated with the school or not, GTR is an independent one. So we don't get any funding from our school whatsoever. So especially for us in competitions like us, it's important to fundraise as much as you can because the money does carry over. So whatever money you save from this year does go into the next year and so on and so forth. And it just gives you a bit of a boost at the beginning of each year to know what you're working with, what goals you have, what you need to accomplish. And it really will help you. Finances is an important part of laying out what your competition can be. You don't want to overstretch your budget. At the same time, you also don't want to just have a bunch of money sitting in the bank and then you're just throwing on like a bad comp. Not that anyone does that, but in general, putting a strong emphasis on fundraising is something that we should look for doing. We can go next. Okay, and then going into board, especially communication between the board, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I know every different comp has multiple ways of doing it. For us, we like Slack, GroupMe, and email. For general messages, we'll just send out like a mass email. People, we have our board, we tell them like, you know, be checking your email every day at least, if not twice a day, to see if we send out a message to you. And then same thing, GroupMe is just a quick way to get in communication with everybody for last minute plans. We're driving somewhere, somebody needs to pick something up, just very quick communication. And then Slack is where we house like a majority of our delegations and tasks that we have for the year and our goals specific to each position on board. So we'll have our list up there of what PR needs to get done. We'll have our list up there of what venues external needs to go visit and what places they need to call for sponsorship, and then what budgeting questions we have to have finance get done, and so on and so forth. And by keeping that all centralized in Slack, it's really easy to have everybody look at what needs to be done so we can all keep on track, because sticking to a schedule is very important. In terms of actual show time, during the show, we like to use walkie-talkies. We do use these extended earpieces that you can buy. They attach to the walkie-talkie, and we just keep them in our ear. And we'll give the people who are spread out throughout the venue the most the walkie-talkie. So it's not necessarily chain of command, because it doesn't really do any good to have 3 directors and 2 logistics having all the walkie-talkies and then all the people below them having no idea what's going on. So try and spread the walkie-talkies out throughout the venue. That way they serve as a line of communication. So if we position people where they need to be, that way if we need to relay a message to somebody, we know who we can contact really quick in their ear to get them to relay the messages. And that just speeds everything up, especially if there's delays in the show, or if a dancer gets hurt for some reason, we need first aid or something, then we're not struggling to figure out how to do that. And then board management, that goes mostly into the documentation. And trust me, there is a lot of documentation that goes into running a competition from every position. So it's important to make sure that you're saving all these documentations, just so that if you need to close something out, but then you need to revisit it later, you're not looking for it. It's important to stay organized. We do that through a Google Drive. So we have a massive Google Drive with GTR, and then we spread it out into each position and whatnot. So that way, when people complete an assignment or a registration packet, sponsorship packet, whatever they need to finish, they can just throw it into that Google Drive. We can take a look at it. They can take a look at it, and we can access it from anywhere. And then task tracking is just that last thing that I want to touch up on. For that, we can use Excel, I think is better. Google Sheets also works. And then Trello. We've used Trello in the past. It's somewhat difficult to get everyone to hop on board with it, because it's a different app, everyone's moving there. But I do see a lot of potential in Trello in task management. So Trello, you can essentially just upload your completed work. So if PR had to create a flyer, they can just upload their flyer and pin it right to their Trello task board, which is really convenient as well. So those are good for tracking individual tasks and assigning dates to each task, so you can see the progress of what everybody is making, and ensuring that you guys are working, when you're working as a board, as a single unit and not just a bunch of people running around trying to focus on themselves. So I'll pass it over to Nile. He'll talk to you some more about hotels.
Yeah, so hotels are essentially the home base for the competition and are really important. So I just kind of want to go over like the process of it. So the first thing is for hotels, when you're contacting them, you're going to contact hotels in your nearby area through phone calls and emails. And a really important factor of hotels is the location of it, because you want to pick a hotel that's relative to other locations that you're going to be transporting a large amount of people every day, such as the show venue, the after party venue, or even the airport. And something that you can do for hotels is ask them for mixer rooms, practice space, storage, or boardroom options. And in terms of price, obviously every city would have a different price because it's a different market. But you basically would get a quote from these hotels and then negotiate a price based on previous years. And then another big factor is discounts with hotels. And because you are having such a large scale reservation with the hotel, they might throw in a discount by lowering room prices, or maybe giving other things such as mixer rooms, boardrooms, or practice space available for you. And then to get the best quote, obviously just book early. And then lastly, maybe something that you can talk to hotels, maybe sending them your sponsorship package in exchange for mixer rooms, practice days, or boardrooms, and kind of getting a deal based on that. You can go to the next one. Yeah. And then so another big aspect of the competition is obviously the show and the after party venue. So for the show, something that most competitions do is just contact local theaters, schools, or even universities, or anywhere that has an auditorium, and see if they would let you book that venue. And then something when you're looking for an auditorium is looking for accommodations, because you need to accommodate for the amount of large people that are going to gather there, prop storage space, lighting, sound, and all those technological related needs that you would need to run or host a competition. And that's something you have to keep in mind. And then kind of talking about the after party venue. So you would do this by contacting local bars and nightclubs by either emailing them, calling them, or even visiting these places and go talking to them. And a big thing for hosting a competition after party is seeing if they can accommodate for an 18+ event, because most of the time, most people aren't 21 when going to competitions. You also have to think about providing transportation to the venue. And then when negotiating a contract with these after party venues, there's a few types of contracts you can do and kind of get like things like drink specials. And the 3 types of contracts that at least GTR uses is a drink sales, a fee, or both. And drink sales is when you kind of negotiate that you will hit a certain amount of sales at the bar, and that will pay for the venue. Either you pay a flat out fee or a combination of both. And I'm gonna pass over to Aman now.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and talk to you guys about ticketing. Ticketing is a really, really important thing, especially when it comes to show and the after party, because it's a really big chunk of your revenue. So it's really important that you use the ticketing platform that's best suited to your competition. So ones that GTR has used in the past or currently still do use are Eventbrite, Tix.com, and Printed Tickets. Eventbrite's really good, so is Tick.com, because they use a QR code system. So as soon as somebody buys a ticket, they'll get a unique QR code for their ticket, and you just have to scan it when they show up. The problem with these ticketing platforms is, especially with Eventbrite, it's a really large fee. So 3.5% plus $1.59 per transaction. So if you're trying to keep your ticket costs like reasonable within a $10 to $15 range, that's a pretty big chunk of your revenue, especially that 1.59 fee per transaction. So it could take a really big kind of chunk out of your revenue stream. So you got to be careful when you're picking these platforms. Tix.com is similar to Eventbrite with the QR code system, and it's really robust. The thing that's nice about Tix.com is there's a wider option of transaction services and fees. So if you guys are interested in that one, I'd recommend going to their website and actually looking at the different options they offer, because there's a lot, and I really didn't want to like go over like 10 different options in this PowerPoint. But I think Tix.com is better overall than Eventbrite, but both do have their strengths and advantages. When it comes to printed tickets are really, really good because there's no transaction fee, but it requires a lot more manual labor. You have to set up tabling around your location, around various locations on your campus. It also makes it difficult for students that aren't on campus to get a ticket. I recommend putting something on your Facebook or Instagram post with a number or an email in case somebody does want to get a ticket and they can't make it to that location on campus. Google Forms is something that's really, really useful when people are buying the ticket. Have them fill out a Google form with like basic information like their name, birth, or name, grade, and things like that. You might want to include a small waiver saying that any damages to like the bar or anything that happens on the transportation is not the responsibility of the comp, but rather the person that caused the damage. Kind of taking those small insurance steps are really, really important just in case anything goes wrong. You can dump all the data from the Google form to a Google sheet, and then you can kind of use that sheet to track who's bought a ticket and who hasn't when they're actually coming up to the door. Again, that requires a lot of manual labor. So Eventbrite or Tix.com are really helpful in kind of getting around that manual labor. But the really big plus side of printed tickets is there's no fee aside from actually printing the tickets. And so that can be really helpful if you don't want to take a hit to your revenue. It's also really important to be able to sell at the door, especially when it comes to show, because if you guys are inviting any of the local community, like Indian families nearby, to come to your event, they might not be able to buy a ticket online. So it's really important that you do offer tickets at the door, but this has to be done in conjunction with the other platforms. You don't only want to sell at the door. And then next we can move on into finances. So finances is a really important part of comps, of course. So a lot of comps are either school associated or are independent, as Nikhil mentioned earlier. So when you're setting up your bank accounts and looking for tax IDs for these bank accounts, it's really important that you know the difference between these two comps. School funded comps usually can get a tax ID from their student government association, and their bank account will depend on their school guidelines, but most of the time your student government associations will have like paperwork or processes set up to help you access these bank accounts or access the money that they've given to you. For independent comps, an EIN, so an employment identification number, which you can get through the IRS website. So to get to that website, if you just Google EIN IRS and then click the first .gov link, you can go through an application to get an EIN number. I think it takes less than 15 minutes. And you really just need to be able to identify what kind of business you are. So I think for most comps, it would just be a community event. And then you need your social security number, of course, but you can get this EIN number really, really quickly, and you can take it to the bank and set up a bank account for your independent organizations. And then when it comes to the actual like budgeting and finance aspect of finances, Excel is definitely the most useful tool. I really, really love Excel, and it's really important that you use more detail rather than less. At some point or another, you will be giving up your position to somebody else who will be taking over. So when they are looking through your budget, you want to give them as much detail as possible. So try and break your revenue and expense streams down as into the smallest of details. So that way, whenever somebody does take over, they know exactly where the money is going. And it's also really important when you are backtracking your own work, because you want to have that detail just in case you did forget something. You want to track your forecast and your actuals, of course, for your expenses and revenues. Asset allocation is really, really important to track. You want to know where your money is, how much money you have in cash, how much money you have in your Venmo or your Cash App, how much is in PayPal, how much is in your bank accounts, and having something on your Excel sheet where you can see exactly how much money your organization has and how much like is actually liquidable money. That's really important when it comes down to like the really big expenses such as hotels or venues. So keep that in mind and track every single dollar and where it is. And something that's really important is when you're finance, you are giving money to other positions to make work with that money. So you're not going to be the one that's kind of telling hospitality which paints to buy or which poster board is better. But what's really important is you understand that what their needs are. So you're not going to know exactly what each position is doing with the money, but you should meet with those positions to understand why they need that money and what their plans are from the beginning so that you can budget properly.
Hey, hi everyone. So I am really quickly just gonna go over like a new comp and the whole like starting spiel of it, and then I'll go into detail about Raas and the 614 and what really helped our competition. So for anyone that's like thinking of starting a new competition, I highly recommend it because I think if I could go back and relive that, I would. It was one of the best experiences of college. So just to start off, like know what your vision is and know what you want to accomplish from the comp. If you're not going to know, if you're not going to believe in the vision, it's going to be really hard for like other people to like follow that with you as well. And then know your values and priorities. Make sure you have like a set of values that you will follow throughout your comp and like add them in all your aspects of competition, which was something that we were really big on. And then allow your board to feel ownership. I know GTR talked about how important board is. Board is everything. Like if you don't have a board that believes in the vision, that feels that ownership, it's going to be hard for the comp to really succeed. And also don't micromanage. It's hard. Like there's so many people and like so many more perspectives if you allow your board to have that creative freedom as well, versus like 3 directors managing everything. So it really worked for us that our board was very into the competition and they felt they themselves envisioned the whole idea. And then I think it's super important to be innovative as a new competition. So when you are new, you want to bring something new to the table to show that your comp does deserve a spot to be bid, or just in general, like you are showing that there's something different about your competition. which takes me to my next point of taking risks. I personally feel like it's really easy as a new comm just to like kind of build things on your own and not follow the traditional route. So this will allow you to take more risks, which is important to bring something new. And also it is okay to make mistakes. I think as a new comp or even as a returning comp, that will happen. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. So just take that in as well. Aim to be the best. That's something we really, when we started a competition, we were really big on not wanting to just be a good enough competition for like a first year competition. We went in wanting to be the best. So again, I think if you're putting in so much time, energy, and effort into something, you don't want to aim to be mediocre. You do want to try and be the best. So I would go with that. And then lastly, have fun through it all. Again, I think everyone's vision is that like teams have a lot of fun, but also remember it is something you're putting in your time. So it is also your experience. So make sure you have fun throughout all of it. Okay. Okay, so where to start? Now you've decided you want to start a competition. So like, what do we do? My best advice, and I think everyone would say this, is make sure you're talking to as many people as you could. There will never be enough people that you will talk to. So be it like other comp alums, it doesn't even have to be people from the Raas circuit. Talk to people from the Fusion and Bhangra circuit as well, because every comp, every alum has a completely different perspective. And for us, that helped us lay out our structure. So it was really easy to like talk to people, take like best practices that they were using and implement that within our competition. Second of all, finalize a board. Again, I think board is the most important aspect of any competition. If your board isn't good, they're not with you on this, it's going to be really hard to succeed. So make sure your board feels that ownership and they're with you throughout the whole time. Okay, make a task tracker. So what really helped us was when we had started off the competition, we while we were getting all the information and details from everyone, we created a task tracker, kind of adding all the things that we need to complete. So this was like a good way to stay organized. So I would highly recommend this just to have like a structure. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do it like this now. Okay, second thing, probably my least favorite part is finance, but it's also the most important part. Make sure you're creating a budget before you decide to start a competition, because it is very important to know like your finances, and make sure you're overestimating your expenses and underestimating revenue, because you're probably going to spend more than you expect. There are going to be things that are going to come up. And this was basically our like very like start of like how we kind of started organizing our budget. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't as accurate, obviously, because it is going to change, but it is something to kind of have an idea of what route you want to take. And then finalize venue and hotel. I think finalizing venue is like the most important thing, because that determines a lot. So get that in as early as you can. Like that determines your competition date, where your hotel is, busing and everything. So that was super important for us. And even when we were booking venues, like a lot of things were booking up. So like as soon as you can do the venue, I would go ahead and do that. Create a marketing plan. I'm going to touch that later as well, but our marketing was like something that I think really helped our competition, because that's the first glimpse that people are. So it's super important that it is good and it is eye-catching. So there's that. And then, okay, so finance, again, the most like, I would say one of the most important parts of a competition. Make sure you're doing any and all fundraisers. When we started off, we had obviously $0. So we wanted to do something really quick to have some money in our account. So we did like our quick fundraiser of Jump We Matched, which again, like didn't give us a lot, but it was like $400, which was good to have as like a starting competition, because there was something. So I would like really emphasize on doing as many fundraisers you can do, even if it's a small amount that you're getting from it, because at the end of the day, all of that's going to add up and you're going to use it. I think GTR did touch on this, which was just like meet with your committees and create budget with each committee so they know how much they should be using, and they have like a set amount to follow as well. So application and registration fees, I put this down because I think for me personally, when we started a new competition, it was very overwhelming to see all the finances and like how much we needed to like make and stuff. But somewhere like you realize that you are getting those application fees in, you're getting those reg fees in, which does add a little bit of like confidence that you will make some money. And then outreach, again, super important to talk to as many people as you can. With our comp and our finance chairs and like the whole board, they went on like our street where there are possible sponsors, and they would go and talk to people in person, which is highly recommended. Like if you can go in and you can talk to people I would go ahead and do that because that has a whole different impact than just like calling or emailing. So that was really, I think that worked for us. We got very random deals where there was like this pizza company that gave us like free pizza for our comp, like after comp for like judges, which was really nice for us. And I also think that when you're outreaching, when you're talking to people, it's super important to create like really nice, like good, strong networks with people, because as a new competition, I think you have a way to make people feel slight ownership or connected to the comp, which will go a long way in the coming years as well. So I would recommend having a very positive relationship with all your sponsors. This is just our sponsorship packet that we emailed to all the people and gave to all the people that wanted to be sponsors, or like that we wanted them to be sponsors. So I kind of just broke down like the benefits and the different packets and prices that would allow them to get different advertisements. So I think it's obviously super important to have one so you can send that to people that would be your prospective sponsors. Okay. And then registration. Okay, so registration is, I think, where we spend a lot of time in terms of organizing, because it's a lot of influx of information that is coming in from teams. So you want to make sure that it's one of the most like organized like part of your competition. So, I mean, first thing is just this reg packet, which is just FAQs, video viewing related checklist for teams before they apply to the competition. So that's that. So make sure you have that down so you can send that to teams before they're applying. Once teams are done applying and then they're accepted, you have this post-acceptance packet, which kind of just breaks down your like dates and timelines and deadlines that teams need to be looking to know, and other information. So there's that. Okay. Our biggest thing that I think really helped us was this website, because it helped us organize and helped our team stay organized as well. So I would highly recommend comms to do this if this is something that would work. Let's try this. Okay. I'm doing something wrong. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I am just, so basically each team had their own login systems. So when they would log in, they would see their team, they would come down and just says like a congratulations. It has their post-acceptance packet and their checklist. We emphasized a lot on working with our charity that we were working with. So that we made sure that all teams knew about that, and we did multiple activities with them throughout the year. And then the address to all our venues, and then all the phases, like all the deadlines and all the information that they needed to upload. So I just go on like the team roster here. They would come here and they would add all that information, which helped us, which I think teams really did like. It kind of helped everyone stay organized. So that was really nice for us. And then, okay, besides the website, our post-acceptance system, also our red chairs made sure that it was very organized, which again, I think it really helped us even before the weekend and during the weekend of. So this is just our checklist. So after each phase, when each team completes their work, we went ahead and we just put like the red chairs went and put what each team finished. So when we wanted to check if teams were like up to date with everything, it was just easier for us to come in here and check that they had finished their work. So this was really nice. And then besides that, we had our PAS data collection system, which was linked to each team's roster and other like pages where they're filling out the information. So all the information would be collected here, like the amount of people on the roster, like how many people were vegetarian, which this really helped hospitality just come in here and tally up rather than having to go through like every single sheet, which was really nice. And then same with t-shirt sizes. And then team finances as well. This was really good for finance because it pulled data from all the different sheets for each team. So again, for finance was super simple to just come in here or look at the revenue and expenses and calculate all that. Okay, and then this really helped us during the weekend of our check-in system. Again, it was linked to each team's specific sheet. So when each team would check in, this would kind of just go through and see like if everyone got their rosters, if they were checked in, and if they got their wristbands. So once they were completely checked in, it would reach 100%. And if teams weren't, like if they were missing people, we had that data completely right here. So there's that, which was, so these things really like in general helped us stay organized throughout the competition and throughout the weekend. So again, I think even GTR emphasized using Excel is super important. So make sure you're like actually taking advantage of like the different formulas and stuff that Excel can help you throughout. Okay, so marketing. Again, I always say this, it is a major reason for our comp success. And because they like our marketing team really worked hard to create like a very specific marketing strategy, which I think was very eye-catching, and a lot of people did know our competition because of the way they marketed. And as a new comp specifically, I always emphasize that it is very important that you have a good marketing, because people don't know anything about your competition, and marketing, the way your comp is marketed is how they'll see your competition. So again, super important to have some sort of innovative marketing strategy. So I think ours biggest thing was we wanted to create a brand. And as a new competition, we knew that that was very important because no one knew what Raas and the 614 was. And we, throughout our whole like thing, really emphasized the idea of being called the 614. And that we did that through like hashtags, through the way that our comp was like talked about and stuff, which really worked for us at the end. So, and even like the way our hashtags and everything was, like, we made sure they were all very consistent on all our packets and all our Instagram posts. So again, I think just like creating a brand in some sort of way would be really nice for any comp. Hospitality, I think just like make sure that there, like the biggest thing is make sure there's enough food and water for the teams. We did 2 lunches and scattered them throughout the comp like on Saturday, which I think really helped because there is a lot of working. There's like tech time, there's like actual dancing at the comp and stress. So I think having enough food and water is just very important at that time. Swag items, make sure you're ordering them enough like ahead of time to like check quality. We like ensured quality ratings if any place that we ordered was good, but we still had an issue with our shot glasses. So we needed enough time to like send them back and get them back. So make sure you leave that enough like time period in the middle. And I think swag items is somewhere where you can also be like more personal, unique, different than other comps. It's a great place to build something of your own. So what we did was we gave teams like a flag with their logos. We sent postcards to our teams, and we gave teams Buckeye chocolates, which is like a staple OSU thing. So again, it's a very like a cute little place where you can be personal. So go ahead and do that there. Liaisons and board, again, very crucial part of your comp success. So make sure they're interacting with the teams in a very positive manner. Like if they have any issues, tell them to like kind of come talk to a board and not let that out on teams. And then just make sure they're having fun as well, that everything is placed in a way where they can also enjoy their time. Because again, I feel like if board and liaisons look bored or they don't look like they're enjoying, then the teams aren't going to have fun either. Okay, so logistics. Again, I think a venue was covered, but like same thing, just like make sure that you're talking to the venue and you're making sure that they have all the aspects that you need, from lighting, tech, like rigging information, and then also make sure the post-practice like tech time location is close by. And then there's also some place where you can do video viewing. And then for practice room post-tech time, make sure that it matches as much as it can to the actual stage dimensions, which I think would be really helpful for teams to go practice after. Hotel, biggest thing is for us that really worked out was location. So our hotel and venue were a walking distance. They were connected by a parking garage, which was really good in terms of scheduling, in terms of teams wanting to go back and like come back really quickly, or liaisons wanting to just like go and like do things if you forgot something. So overall, this was really nice. And we did not have to worry about busing or traffic or any issues during comp, which I think that saved us a lot of stress or like scheduling like changes that we needed to make. So again, highly recommended if you can find something like that. In terms of like transparency with hotel, I would really tell them to be like aware that there is going to be like, it's going to be loud the night of Saturday. So what we did was we were transparent. We asked them to give us like one floor at least where one room from each team could be there, which would just be our floor. So that was something that we had emphasized, and that worked for us. You don't want to be dealing with Saturday night like a team being like threatened to be kicked out of the hotel. That's like I think the last thing you need to worry about. So be honest with the hotel. And we actually had really good relationships with our hotel and venue people, like managers, which again I think that really helped us, because a lot of times there were changes, there were things that needed to be done or last minute things happening, which they were willing to accommodate with us. So again, I think super important to have those really good relationships with people. Busing, we created just a busing map. It's just like a quick rundown of like where people needed to get down and go. It was a very like good logistical decision that our chair made, which helped us as well. So there's that. Okay, so scheduling. Our schedule, we like very much focused it to be according to the team's convenience. So we made sure we were giving enough prop setup timing or just like enough walk time, enough rest time, as much as we could from our end to do that, we did. And then we also made sure to have buffer time. So our breaks were like longer and we had like longer breaks, longer walk times. So when we needed to make changes, we could just change those buffer times, which would then just like still keep our schedule on track. So we did like for us, like we needed to go over a little bit for prop setup time. So it worked out because we still wanted teams to like have their complete time. So we did let them go over, but then we changed our schedule accordingly. And then, so this schedule was something that we had access to because we were making constant changes. So this is our Friday schedule breakdown. This is our Saturday. So this is our, these are our times between each thing. So this is what we would change, and that would change like the times of the schedule as well. So this is just a quick breakdown. So whenever we needed to change, we would go in here, we'd make those changes, and then we had individual team schedules that were linked to the schedule. So whenever we made changes for any teams, it would go ahead and make those changes for the teams on the schedule that they had access to, which again really helped us because I think during comp weekends, you're bound to have some changes in your schedule. So rather than having to like constantly take screenshots or anything and keep sending it to team, it's really nice that they just had access to this. And whenever it was changing, it was automatically changing for them as well. And then we just had an exact schedule, which kind of just broke down where exact needed to be at different times. Okay, sorry. In terms of communication, we used Remind and GroupMe. GroupMe was basically all liaison coordinators and liaisons talking to the teams and relaying all the information. Remind we only used for logistical purposes. So like the bus is here, or like you need to line up. So like, and that really helped us. It was like a double like reminder that you need to be there, because those were the times that like our schedule was based off of that. So our logistics team dealt with that, which was really nice. And then escalating communication, this is something we really focused on because we wanted to make sure that people were reaching out to the right people during the weekend of, and not all issues were coming to the directors or board members that didn't need to deal with this, because everyone is very like stretched out throughout the weekend. So like we had like a finance person that dealt with all like last minute money related changes that needed to happen. Like everyone would go to him. Liaisons would only go to liaison coordinators. And then like people with schedule issues would go to logistics. So we had that created, which again, I think that helped kind of run the weekend more smooth. And then we use Zello for board. So it's basically like a walkie-talkie, but it's on a phone. It worked for us. I think if you have access to walkie-talkie, like might like do that. But if not, I think Zello is a good alternative to have as well. We had a contingency plan for the weekend, which basically just laid out different scenarios of issues that if we were to have any, that we'd go over with the board before the weekend. So that was really nice, because if things go wrong, I think it's hard to like come up with the solution in the moment, like in the moment. So it was easy to just go back and look through something. So that actually really helped and highly recommended. Okay. I think our last thing is like our board really focused on feedback culture, because especially because we were a new comp, but I think in general it's a really good strategy to just like have, because it helps you grow and learn. So we did with board specifically, we did feedback throughout the year, and that kind of really helped us like become more of like a one unit to learn different learning strategies that like board members had, we had, which again, I think that kind of just really helped us grow and learn. And one thing we were also very focused on was like being transparent with board. So board had access to like anything and everything. We weren't hiding anything from them, which again, I think in our feedbacks, we realized that that was something that board really did like. And then we also did feedback with teams and liaisons. So it would kind of like, obviously, like we definitely had our fair share of issues to fix. So we got those information, and that's something we would implement in our comp next year. And then transition documents, we were big on sustainability. They're like people that are going to come after. We wanted to make sure that they had everything there and done. So it's not like they come in and they don't know where anything is. So these are our 2 documents. We had them for each committee, but these are just the director ones. So throughout the year, we would kind of just go in and add the things that we were doing and kind of just have like a who, when, and like what they needed to know specifically about everything, which again, I think that really helped when we were transitioning out. And I would say do it throughout the year because honestly, like even if I like did it at the end of the year, I would not have remembered everything. So throughout the year, you're able to actually remember those details. Sorry. And then this is just like a document. So we like wrote about what went well during the summer, during the fall, during the spring, and then during the weekend and what didn't go well. So we kind of just like, again, did this all throughout the year. We had every single board member do it for their committee as well. So that was something we really focused on. And I think that's really important just to like sustain your competition. That's what I have.
Awesome. Okay, thank you guys so much. So we're gonna go ahead and move to the questions that we've gotten through the Slido now. The first question that we have is, when first starting a competition or continuing a comp, how do you coordinate the exchange of information from first-time boards to new-time boards?
So I'll go ahead and answer that. So when we have a lot of new people coming in onto a board, especially like the younger crowd, and especially this year too, because of COVID, we didn't really have too many GTR related activities going on. So one thing that you can do is not only use the people who are still currently on board or currently at school, but you can reach out to people who have been on the board in the past, especially if it's an ongoing competition that has a long list of people who have been on the board previously. You know, a lot of times, if you reach out to them, they're more than willing to help clarify any specific details about the job or what it entails. And then on top of that, keeping all the information from previous years. So even though like GTR 2018 or 2019 is now long past, we still have the entire folder. We never delete it. And if we need to, we'll find more space for it or we'll upload it somewhere. But we can always access every document from GTR 2018, 2019, 2020, and so on. So in that manner, they can go back and see, even if they're the predecessors weren't there to actually help them, they can still see all the work that they did. And it kind of helps lay them out so they know, oh, at this date on this time, this is when this document was completed. I should aim and strive to do something similar to that as well. And then just keeping people in contact. And a lot of times we have people on board who will switch positions just in order to advance themselves or because they show interest in something else, but they're still more than willing to help in a position that they've had in the past. So we'd like to just keep people talking to each other, make sure all the resources from all previous years are available. And by doing that, we're able to get a pretty smooth transition of responsibility throughout the entire board over the years.
No, I think Nikhil covered everything, but we didn't really have to transition much because we started off as a new board, but we made sure that we created like really thorough transition documents for each committee that would help like our next year's board kind of start off really smooth. So I think having transition documents is a really good thing.
Okay, for the next question, how does Trello work and could you describe it a little bit more?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take over this one. So Trello is a task tracking app, and you can kind of set up your own workspace. And then within your workspace, you can assign people positions. So like for any competition, you'd have like your directors being the people that are workspace managers. And then you'd have like a workspace for logistics, PR, and like finance, and then like every other position. And then in Trello, you can assign certain tasks. So like for finance, you would do a budget, and then in there you could do subtasks where it's like meet with hospitality, meet with PR, and then as they go through those meetings, the finance person would hop onto Trello and they would check off each of those subtasks, and then eventually for the final task they would upload the finished budget, and then the directors can go in, review the budget, and then like leave whatever comments they want, and then add more tasks for the positions to complete.
Okay, the next question is, we've struggled to find sponsors and receive money because COVID has strongly affected local businesses. Any tips on how to earn money otherwise?
I can kind of take over that one. Something that you could do is maybe potentially profit shares Or something that GTR specifically does is sometimes they sell food like donuts or something at like different places on campus, or kind of do a fundraiser through maybe shirts or some aspect like that. So kind of just getting creative of what you could do. I know like a lot of other organizations also do like things on their social medias as like dare boards or pie in the face, like any of those methods, like even though it's like kind of small, like every penny matters in a competition. So those are different ways you could probably.
Yeah, I just want to add in something else as well. Just because we already have experience and we create a lot of contacts when we're trying to book an after party venue. So because we have those contacts throughout the year, we'll have events too. We'll throw like kind of parties on the weekend. So like we'll have usually 2 welcome back parties per year. So at the beginning of each of the 2 semesters that we have, we'll have like a Halloween party and stuff like that. And if you reach out to the right bars and you just talk to them and say, and you can negotiate in a bar minimum, a lot of times they'll rent out the venue to you for either very cheap or even free if you can guarantee like, oh, we'll try and hit like $1,000 or $1,200 in sales. Because on a random Friday, Saturday night, if you find the right bar, they're not going to be hitting those sales. So they're more than welcome to accommodate you, or you just pay the difference. And then all the profit that you make on tickets by selling that party is just pure profit. So if it's close by and it's walkable, then you can just have people arrive there themselves with their ticket, or if you need to arrange busing, that's usually not too much of a problem considering how much money you can stand to make if you throw the party at the right time. Obviously, when doing this, I would look into when everybody has certain finals or exams. I know sophomore year, a lot of people are pre-med, there's going to be orgo, there's going to be biology and stuff like that. So looking into the right dates for that and throwing a party at the right time as a fundraising event can also be very effective for raising money.
I'm sorry, just gonna jump in really quick. I definitely understand it's probably really hard during COVID to just get like sponsors, but I also think that you basically just have to like talk to the sponsor and like kind of like go in like a way where you're like telling them that they're also going to benefit from the sponsorship. So because they're probably also looking for ways to like advertise themselves, get back into the market. So this is like a good way to create that partnership where you're also helping them and they're also helping you. And I think that might kind of take it a little long.
Okay, for the next question, when budgeting, what portion went towards hospitality and how much? And if any, what goes to charity and partner nonprofits?
Yeah, so for the actual like amount that went towards hospitality, I can pull up our budget and like give you a percent. But I think it's really important to know that it's going to vary a lot based on what kind of competition you are. Like for example, St. Louis, our hotel costs aren't that much higher than like what you'd expect from like your average city. But if you look at any places like Houston or, oh, sorry, my camera turned off for some reason. If you look at any place like Houston or any like much larger city, you're going to notice that the hotel costs there are a lot higher than what we're used to. So it's really important that you kind of are more careful with like exactly like your location is going to play a big role into it. Like exactly where you get your hotel. So if you are in a big city, you might not want to go towards downtown. You might want to go somewhere else. And then if somebody else wants to answer any other stuff, I will try and find the exact number for the hospitality breakdown.
I'm also looking. I don't really remember, so I'm just gonna check really quick. Okay. So basically I think it's just like super important to realize how much it's like hard to like give like a solid number, but I think it's important to like realize how much your comp is worth and how much money you're putting. And then based on that, like prioritize if you want to prioritize hospitality versus like other things. So it really depends on what your comp wants to go towards. But we had around like, I could be wrong, but this was like our original budget and we had around like 7,000 dedicated, which included like a lot of different things, not just like the swag items and stuff. So it included like dinner, like judges hotels, judges travel and everything. So that's just like a small little breakdown of ours.
Yeah, so for us, a little over 25% of our entire budget was just for hospitality. And then that didn't include things like swag items and like t-shirts. So hospitality is a huge chunk of your budget. And so it's really important that you like budget adequately and like give hospitality and the hospitality chairs as much attention and time as the finance position as you can, because you really want to know exactly what their cost breakdowns are. Try to negotiate a really good deal with your hotels, because like regardless of what you do, hospitality is going to be a really big portion of your budget. So it's really important that you try to minimize that portion as effectively and efficiently as possible without kind of compromising on quality and like value.
Okay, the next question someone has is, what are some of the hardest things you've had to deal with during comp weekend?
I can go on that one. I think for us, like I think the biggest thing was be really time went by really fast during the comp weekend. Like we didn't really realize like when prop setup ended to like when tech time started. So I think like if we had just given ourselves a little bit more of a buffer time, we would have been more organized. So I think that was like the biggest thing to like our schedule was so focused on teams that we didn't realize that we also needed like a slight time to kind of understand everything that was going through. So I think that was like our biggest challenge. And also like things are gonna go wrong. I feel like that's like it will happen. There are just like so many people, so many things happening. So for us, like we just like made sure it was super important that we were all like staying calm and relaxed. And through that, it kind of just like worked out.
Yeah, I just want to add on. I agree completely with Son about saying like calm and relaxed. We've had multiple instances in like the past where on paper everything looks like it's going to go right. We have everything planned out and whatnot, but if something goes wrong, a lot of times it's a lot of pressure. People tend to snap, people tend to break, and it's just important to keep checking in with everybody and making sure that they're like doing all right as well, because even though you try to portion it out so the entire board is working as a collective, a lot of times more pressure will fall on a single individual or a single chair and whatnot. And because of that, it tends to be unfair, and then they won't say anything, but it can cause problems even larger down the line. So make sure that everybody is like in the right mindset, because if somebody is like almost having a near mental breakdown because there's just so many things going wrong and they're in charge of fixing them, you know, try and aid them, try and help them, and that'll avoid anything major from going wrong. Because as long as you guys are working together, you'll easily be able to get through it. I have faith. But other than that, I would just make sure that, you know, everyone's doing good. So
the next question is, what is something you wish you had done for your comp that you originally didn't plan for?
I'm still thinking. Kashvi and Man, you guys can add too. Okay, and this is like a very superficial thing, but there were like I'm sure there are a lot of things that I just can't think, but the biggest regret that I think, no, not the biggest regret, but like one small regret I had was during the weekend, we didn't really like get any pictures of board or anything. So I feel like during the weekend, just make sure like while you're like doing everything to like kind of record memories with your board and your like co-directors and stuff as well, which is something I would like, that's like the one thing I'd go back and change because I don't really have anything from comp weekend for myself. And Kashmi and Man, and if you guys want to add something.
yeah, I'll go ahead and add something too. Especially my first year on board, I was so like intertwined with like doing my job and just focus, that a lot of times, even if I was like talking to somebody that came in on one of the other teams for the competition, like I would be answering their questions or helping them out any way I can. But I don't know if I really got to know anybody like on a personal like level like that. So I think it's really important, like even if you're just helping somebody get like walk somebody to where they need to be, you know, ask them about like what's going on, what their interests are, something like that. Just get to know people, because you never know when, if you're on a team yourself, if you might be visiting their home comp, or you don't know when you'll run into them again. So I think it'd be nice. I kind of regret not building more personal relationships with a lot of people that came to GTR my first year when I was on the board, but hopefully something to fix this year.
Sorry, I'm gonna circle back to one question. I think someone asked about how much money they were giving to philanthropy, and I like totally forgot about that part. But we definitely, like, I don't remember the exact amount, but we definitely allocated as much as we could, and we worked with our philanthropy like throughout the year. So it wasn't just like a one done, like at the end we're gonna donate this much and end it. So I think that was like something, those were like one of our values that we made sure that we implemented in like different ways, including with the teams as well. We tried. So I like, again, don't remember the exact amount, but we definitely like that was something we did put a lot of focus on as well.
Okay, the next question is, how do you ensure everyone, board and liaisons, know important information about the weekend? Do you use a presentation, a doc, anything else like that?
I think the best way to answer this question is kind of like in all of the above. Use presentations, use docs, spreadsheets, messages, like emails. Like the more you put this information in front of your board and liaisons, the more likely it is to stick. And different people kind of memorize and learn things differently. And your boards and liaisons is a really large group of people, so you should try and hit as many like ways of communicating as possible. So definitely have a presentation as you get closer to the comp to make sure everybody understands what's going on, but also don't make that presentation as like cumbersome. And if it's a presentation that's like 3 hours long, people aren't going to pay attention. So it's really important to kind of put the most important details in your presentation and then like filter in the other stuff through emails and messages. And kind of like we mentioned earlier, like schedules are really important. And so when you hand out printed schedules to your board members, put notes and reminders on there because they'll always be looking at those schedules and they'll always see those reminders. I know we talked about using Remind Me, and that's definitely really helpful. Just kind of making sure you get this information in front of them as much as possible in as many different ways as possible is something that we found to be really helpful.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. I think the only thing we did that helped us was we played Kahoot with them like a few weeks before. So we'd like randomly ask like schedule related questions, just to like make sure people were actually paying attention. So that kind of really worked for us. And another thing we did was on the name tags, we had like the schedule on the back. So during the weekend of like exec had their schedule, they knew exactly like what time everything was. So that helped as well.
Okay, the next question is, how did you start going about creating contracts for teams and for venues?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? It kind of got robot.
Yeah, for sure. How did you start creating contracts for teams and for venues?
So I can answer the part on venues. A lot of venues actually just generally have a general draft contract that you can look over. So you can always ask for that when you get your quote. But something that we found really helpful is just to keep a contract really simple in one page. When you're writing your contracts, like I mentioned earlier, you do want to make sure you have all of the insurance stuff in place. So like if something does break, like you want to make sure you know who is responsible for that thing breaking. You also want to make sure that the people that are attending your events know that they will be responsible for like X items. And so going through and putting those on your contracts is really important. And then getting that draft contract from your venue is something that we found to be really, really helpful because of course they're professionals and they're not really like college students like a lot of us are. So they have like real professional contracts and you can pull bits and pieces from those contracts and put them onto your own venue contracts.
Yeah, I think Aman basically said like everything very well. We got, so I think our team contract was something we got from OSU's Raas team. So we took that in. So like, I guess like talking to like the teams at your college would definitely be like a good start. And then for venue and stuff, we had like, we basically like spoke with the venue and kind of figured out like the important aspects and created a contract based on that.
Okay, the next question is, what are some ways to market your competition to those outside of our community and other residents in the area?
I can take that. So we had like Columbus has like a big like Gujarati community in general. So we kind of like had people on our board that were from Columbus that had these connections. So we made sure that it was very well marketed to like them. So that was our focus. We even at our like Garba like thing in fall that happens every year, we had like a table set up there. And then we also, one of our sponsors were from that community as well, who also helped us a lot to like get that crowd in. So those were like a few ways that we did it.
Okay, the last question we have is, how do you deal with the crowd of people at comp that just aren't listening to directions?
I can take this one. So is this, I guess it doesn't specify whether it's a group on your board or if it's a group of people who are coming to watch or a team. But I feel maybe in any situation, I think using force, although can sometimes be effective, it's maybe I would consider a one-time solution. Like if you yell at somebody, like they might listen the first time, but after that, they really don't want to respond to you. They don't want to interact with you. And that's with your board, that's with your liaisons, that's with dancers, that's with anybody. So I would avoid being aggressive with them as much as possible. If it's specifically your board, I would just have them, make sure that they're looking over their schedule and remind them sternly, like, hey, do you guys have somewhere to be? Do you have something to do? Try and figure out, like, make sure that their jobs are done. And, kind of get to understand why they're in that situation to begin with before you start going to yell at them or anything like that. And then if it's dancers that are doing that, and maybe try and locate their team captain, somebody else who probably has a more interpersonal relationship with them rather than just going around yelling at everybody. It's probably easier if you just locate their captain who can kind of tell them like, oh, hey, you guys need to come be here right now, and so on and so forth. And then if it's people who are just attending the audience, just remind them that there are rules in place, and including all of this stuff when you sell tickets to the venue or the after party or wherever it might be, putting that in there and saying like, if you are either causing problems or refusing to listen to the people you need to listen to, you can be removed from the venue. And just putting clauses in like that in order to keep control and maintain order is something that's really good, because it's not always the easiest to just start, yelling at everybody. Kind of puts people off and it looks bad. It reflects badly upon you, especially as like a board and as a competition if you're running around yelling at everybody. So I think that's some of the ways that you could try and go about maintaining order.
Yeah, and just to like add on, I think if we're like looking at liaisons on board, like we had a bunch of meetings beforehand to make sure like how like they should be like doing and what like the protocol for things is. So we personally, I don't think we had any issues with like board causing an issue or liaisons causing an issue, which I worked with us because I think we had a lot of those trainings. And I think when it comes to teams, I agree, like no yelling, because again, there for their experience, and if you're going to yell at the team, that's just going to ruin like their experience, a lot of people. So I think just training your liaisons and your board to handle that situation would come. And like I do think if you're going to go up to a team member and tell them calmly like, hey, like can you guys please relax, like we need this to happen, they're very receptive of it, more than like versus you yelling at them. So I think super important to stay calm and do that. With the crowd, I honestly I personally like didn't have to deal with that, so I really don't know, but I think that usually crowd is loud, they're having fun, they're causing some sort of fire hazards, which usually the venue deals with anyway. So again, something we didn't have to deal with.
All right, there's actually one more question. So where would you draw the line with hosting a comp this year? If AP feels safe, or if Mixer has to be socially distanced to a point where it takes away from it?
I guess like my only thing would be just to like wait, and like I feel like it's hard to come up with like a decision now, so I'm assuming just like wait until how everything in terms of COVID is going. But the way everything's going, I have a feeling that like I'm assuming that social distancing is going to definitely be reduced by then, so people will be able to kind of like be in large gatherings again. So at least from my side, that's what it would be.
Yeah, I would also agree. And I would say in terms of drawing a line per se as to how bad the situation would have to get before we shut down the comp, I think it's also important to like remember we're already coming off of a COVID year. So if we do another like year in a row, 2 years as a circuit, having no competitions around, like the lack of experience amongst the younger crowd is only going to get wider. And because of that, rebooting the circuit is only going to get more difficult. So there are definitely might have to be like guidelines in place, like having masks at Mixer, or reducing the size of the after party, or even putting people into groups and scheduling it differently so there's not too many people in one place at one time. So only like maybe out of the 8 teams, like we have 3, 3, and 2 at Mixer at a time. So 3-team Mixer, 3-team Mixer, and 2-team Mixer, something like that, and just shorten it. You could do things like that to maintain COVID guidelines, but in terms of actually canceling the entire competition like for 2 years in a row, it would be very difficult to get it started back up again in the way that it was before, especially when a lot of the upperclassmen leave. So I think that's a decision that would have to be made later, because I do take that one as a very serious decision, because it could spell like the end for a lot of competitions.